Hello, my name is Hank Voss. I am a professor here in the Christian Ministry Department. So I am glad to get to share with you a little bit about the global engagement experience that Dr. May Young and I had this past January 2019, where we took a team of 37 students to Israel. We started off our preparation, Dr. Young and I, by attending a 2-day global engagement experience workshop, which was just a magnificent experience. Really enjoyed the chance to get to hear from some experts, as well as to connect with other faculty who were going to be leading trips all over the world. And that was just a very supportive and encouraging time. I also received this global engagement experience action planning chart, which I'm hoping will be a part of your experience as well. It allowed us to think through, what did we want to see happen before our experience, what did we want to see happen during the global engagement experience, and then what did we want to see afterwards. Our first priority was to just create what we called a community of kindness. That was a phrase that we got from Dr. Faye Chekovich. She had led trips with May before, and they had set a priority on continuing that life together attitude on our trip. And so we started off explaining we wanted to be a community of kindness, what that meant for how we connected with one another. We identified prayer partners early on, I think in the first meeting, where we asked teams to break up into twos and then get to know each other, share prayer requests, pray for one another, and then those prayer partners or battle buddies became something that we continued all the way through the trip, and was a way for us to kind of manage our team. We would also then break those prayer partner groups up into larger groups of 2 to 3 pairs for what we called family group discussions, and it gave us a quick way to kind of divide the teams up into manageable small groups. So once we got to Israel, we had just a marvelous time traveling around the land of the Bible. We continued those prayer partner groups. Each night we tried to have a team meeting where we debriefed kind of highlights and lowlights from the day. This is kind of a Protestant way to talk about the spiritual discipline of examine. Where did you feel consolation? Where did you feel desolation? Where did you sense the Spirit moving? A lot of our students, this was their first time being out of the country. And so we planned some opportunities for them to hear from different groups that we came into contact with. We spent some time with a Palestinian pastor and theologian. We spent some time with Orthodox Jews. We spent time with Messianic believers, and this allowed us to kind of hear different understandings of what's going on in the Middle East. Our focus was the biblical narrative. Students were getting Old Testament and New Testament credit for this course. But I think what surprised me was the spiritual growth we saw in the students. We actually had 9 students rededicate their lives to Christ and publicly make that confession next to the Sea of Galilee on this trip. 9 out of 37. And the rest of them were serious disciples of Christ for the most part. These were just ones who didn't feel impressed to publicly rededicate their life to Christ. So that was a pretty exciting component of the trip. After we returned from the trip, we had a number of follow-up times with students, one-on-one for coffee, especially those students who have rededicated their lives to Christ, that group of 9. And then we had a team meeting where we met for dinner at one of our colleagues' houses, and then just shared ways that, things we wanted to remember and take with us from our time together in Israel.
Hi, I'm Phil Grabowski, and I teach sustainable development here at Taylor. And last January, Bob Aronson from Public Health and I led 20 students to Malawi and Zambia, and we were hosted there by World Renew. to do community development work. And so some of the students were more interested in the agriculture part, and others were more interested in public health. In May, when we went through the training, there were a number of things that were useful for preparing for the trip, and then even while we were there at the trip. I think hearing from so many different faculty who have led trips, this was my first time taking students abroad, so hearing from those other faculty who have done this for a long time was really useful, because they had all these tips of ways to help students prepare, help students process while they're there, and also make sure that we help them reflect and process the experience when they come home. So I remember it helped me structure how we did our 3 or 4 gatherings before the trip, and what types of information we wanted everybody to have. It helped us even design how we were going to have the learning experience while we were there. And one of the things while we were there that came in handy was this these 3 circles that they had of your comfort zones in the center. And then outside that is kind of, you're outside your comfort zone, but you're being stretched and growing. And then beyond that circle is the panic zone. And we used that with our students as we were preparing to go into the homestay, because a lot of them were getting into the panic zone. And we told them, we want you to be outside that panic zone, but also outside your comfort zone. So we're going to try it, we're going to make sure you're safe and you're not panicking, and we adjusted as we needed. And it just gave us a vocabulary to talk with them about these cross-cultural experiences, and then also to be able to point out one person's comfort zone is a lot smaller or bigger than others. You know, panic zone, it comes a lot sooner for some people than others, and that's okay. Everybody's at a different spot. So that was something that came out of the training that we found useful. And then some of the tips also for preparing for coming home were really useful. So having students write up a very short summary of the experience, even on the plane ride home, and help them to realize that some people weren't going to be super excited about hearing about their stories. They weren't going to want to spend hours hearing about their time in Africa. That was helpful, and students told us, I'm glad you told me that, because it was really disappointing to come home, and people just didn't, some people at least didn't care. And then also it helped us structure our debrief after, and students were able to share some of those same frustrations, but also some of the joys of people that they'd been able to share with, and experiences they'd had, and how it made them think about life in a different way. They had great opportunities to engage with communities, and I was so proud of our students for how they pushed themselves to develop relationships with people who were very different from them, and they even worked hard to learn some of the language. And they were, they told us the first day they were pretty uncomfortable. It was kind of scary doing all this, but by the end, they had really met people, and we did like a 3-day homestay. They didn't want to leave after the 3 days, even though they were kind of terrified going in. That was a really neat experience to see them develop those relationships, and how well they put up with adversity as well, car breakdowns, delays, challenges that happened, and everybody kept their mood really positive. One of the things that we did to build our team that Bob Aronson had done before with other trips was just having everybody share their testimony we would take turns in the morning for devotions. Somebody would share their testimony, and it was just really powerful. We broke into 2 groups of 10, and we stayed in those same groups the whole time, and students just really shared from their heart, and I got to know them a lot better. They got to know each other really well, and it's just amazing to hear about how God has been working in their lives, and we had some great conversations.